Reality doesn't speak, it doesn't whisper answers, it doesn't drop clear instructions into your lap, and it certainly doesn't follow human logic, but that doesn't mean it's silent. Because reality is always communicating, just not in the language you were taught to listen for. It doesn't say, "This is the right path." Instead, it folds a pattern into your life, a repeating symbol, a dream that returns, an idea that won't leave you alone. You see, reality isn't random, it's layered, and at its deepest layer, it speaks in symbolic intelligence, the same way dreams do, the same way ancient myths do, the same way the universe seems to arrange synchronicity when you're paying attention. This is not metaphor. It's how real mystics, spiritual teachers, and even some physicists describe the structure of life. A field of mirrored potential, where the surface events are just the outer ripples of a deeper unfolding pattern. In Taoism, they don't tell you what to do. They tell you to observe the way of things, the Tao which is never named, only witnessed. In ancient spiritual systems, reality wasn't seen as a linear series of causes and effects. It was a living text, a sacred mirror, a dream you're walking through, and if you stopped analyzing it and started reading it, the messages would appear. Not in words, but in repetition, in metaphor, in structure. The modern world taught you to look for logic, to demand answers, to think in bullet points, but reality isn't a textbook, it's a mirror shaped like a myth. And the people who know how to live well aren't the ones who try to control it. They're the ones who learn to interpret it, like a tarot spread, like a pattern in the sky, like a line in a dream, that suddenly makes perfect sense, not logically but deeply. So if you're waiting for life to speak clearly, you'll miss what it's already showing you, because reality doesn't talk, it reflects. If you want to understand how reality communicates, stop looking for answers, and start looking for returns. What comes back? What repeats? What arrives dressed in different clothing but always carrying the same emotion? The ancients didn't call these coincidences, they called them omens, messages, signs, not because they were superstitious but because they understood something modern minds forgot. Life doesn't deliver its truth in data, it delivers it in pattern. You might meet the same dynamic across 5 different relationships. You might find yourself drawn to the same kind of story, over and over. You might see a strange symbol, word, or animal 3 times in a week and feel something stir. That's not delusion, that's dream logic leaking into daylight. And reality is structured more like a dream than we've been led to believe. In dreams there's no randomness. There's also no direct logic. Everything is symbolic. And the same is true here if you're willing to read the signs sideways. This is what Carl Jung pointed to with the concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that have no causal connection but feel deeply ordered. It's what Hermetic teachings described with, as above, so below, as within, so without. These weren't metaphors. They were keys for reading the mirror, because the mirror of life doesn't speak to your ears. It speaks to your attention. And here's the secret. What you notice isn't always random. Sometimes it's a call, echoing from the deeper layer of reality, trying to guide you through pattern, not instruction. You might call it intuition, or divine timing, or just a weird feeling. But what you're actually experiencing is the field trying to show you a shape, a loop, a reflection. So if something keeps appearing, don't ask, is this real? Ask, what is this trying to show me about the shape of things? Because that's what mystics learned to read. Not just what happened, but what kept happening. And they didn't ask the mirror to talk. They watched what it repeated and then stepped back far enough to see the pattern behind it. If this is opening something in, you hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. Because these aren't just videos, they're mirrors. If reality were just cause and effect, you'd be able to think your way out of every problem. But you've already noticed, that doesn't work. Because the events in your life aren't random, and they aren't personal either. They're archetypal. This is why the same stories appear across every culture: a fall from grace, a journey through darkness, a betrayal by a trusted figure, a test of faith, courage, or truth. It's not because humans copy each other, it's because reality reflects through pattern, and those patterns are old, deeper than language. Myth isn't fiction, it's symbolic memory. It's the way human consciousness encodes universal structure. And when life reflects a myth back at you, whether it's the hero's journey, the trickster's disruption, or the exile's search for home, you're not supposed to ask, why me? You're supposed to ask, what part of the pattern am I in? This is how Joseph Campbell saw it. He didn't study stories to entertain. He studied them to reveal that life reflects us through narrative sequence, not personal reward or punishment. That's what a mirror does. It doesn't show you what you think. It shows you what role you're inhabiting, consciously or not. And here's where it gets mystical. You're not just the character. You're also the dreamer. The one watching the story unfold. Learning to recognize that it's not being written for you. It's being reflected by you, not your conscious self, but the deeper part of you that knows what pattern your soul came to complete. In this light, your life doesn't look random. It looks structured like a myth, filled with trials, thresholds, mirrors, and messengers, not to make you suffer, but to wake you up to the symbolic intelligence beneath the surface. So instead of asking, what does this mean about me? Ask, what myth is this echoing? What lesson is being staged through this symbol? What archetype am I being asked to grow through? Because the mirror isn't showing you the world, it's showing you the structure you're standing inside of. And once you recognize that, you stop reacting to every event like a crisis, you start watching them like chapters in a sacred play. There's a reason mystics across time spoke in riddles. Not because they were hiding the truth, but because truth isn't spoken, it's reflected. And unless you learn how to interpret the mirror, you'll spend your whole life arguing with it. This is what ancient divination was about. Not fortune-telling, but pattern tracking. Reading the I Ching was about seeing the current you were swimming in. Interpreting dreams wasn't superstition. It was training in symbolic awareness. Studying astrology wasn't about predicting fate. It was about understanding rhythm and archetype in motion. They all said the same thing in different languages. Reality doesn't talk. It reflects. And you are the interpreter. So what does that mean for you now? It means your job is no longer to ask, what's going to happen to me? It's to ask, what is reality mirroring back that I haven't yet learned to read? Because once you stop chasing outcome and start attuning to reflection, everything shifts. You start walking through the world like a lucid dreamer. You stop needing the world to explain itself to you. You stop needing control over every chapter. You start noticing the shape behind the moment, the geometry, the rhythm, the invitation. Here's the strange gift of this path. You don't need life to get easier. You just need your perception to get deeper. Because with deep enough perception, the mirror becomes a mentor. The chaos becomes a code. And life itself becomes a living myth, not a problem to solve, but a story to wake up inside of. And at that point, you don't ask for signs. You start seeing that everything is one. You don't demand meaning. You recognize that meaning never left. And you don't beg for answers, because you finally understand the mirror has been speaking this whole time, just not in your language. What reflection in your life feels different now that you're seeing the pattern? Not asking for certainty, just awareness. And if this spoke to something deep in you, subscribe to Digital Mind. Not for advice, but for insight. Because sometimes the most important truths aren't taught, they're remembered. This content is for spiritual insight and symbolic reflection only. Interpretations are personal. Trust your direct experience over external claims.